Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad, and we take a dive in world sports. This is my college football week 13 recap video of Rivalry Week. Hope everyone enjoyed this past weekend, holiday weekend's football action. There's a lot of great games this weekend, a lot of historic occasions, and other shocking news happening in college football. Make sure you stay to the end of this video and we see the updated version of the Chat Sports Talks PowerPoint Index Top 25 and see who is now my new top 4. But before we begin into any of all of this, if you could, just go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me. Really pleased to help you two guys. Helps the channel out. You also subscribe if you wish. So let's just go right into it and just go look at some of these games. In reviewing last week's picks, if you got the ones I actually really discussed, I was 7 and 3, but I did have 4 other ones that I got to mention. I got all 4 of those right. So I actually went 11 and 3 last week. Did really good. I'll do better in college football and do NFL, but that's a different story. So let's just go ahead and we'll dive right into this and we'll go back to the conference that doesn't get a lot of love, and that's the Miggity Mac. Now, half of the MAC championship was already determined. Northern Illinois has already clinched their spot in Detroit, and they're waiting the winner of the K-State, Kent State, and Miami showdown on Sunday, and it was a epic showdown between these two individuals, these two schools, should I say. And, you know, it was a quality matchup between these two programs. Miami's Gabbert had 405 yards, 4 TDs. Williams for Kent State had 168 yards and 2 TDs. While Dustin Crum had over 300 yards passing, 2 TDs. So this is a really rounded team. Even for Kent State, Marquise Cooper even had a 126 yards and 1 touchdown. So they had 200-yard rushers, 300-yard passer. Keyshawn Abram had 130 yards receiving and a touchdown for Kent. Well, Kenny Tracy had 104 yards and a touchdown for Miami. And it was just a very stalwart type of performance. Both schools ended up getting a bunch of sacks. 3 for Miami, 4 for Kent State. Each one had a pair of interceptions. So it was a showdown of these two teams trying to make sure to see who's going to get into that claim the East and get to Detroit. So this game went into overtime. Of course. What other better way to determine a football matchup in overtime? And it was just that last play where Miami was looking to win, and Kent State ended it. Kent State escaped 48-47, and will face off Northern Illinois next week. All right, next we head into Conference USA, where one half of that conference championship game is already determined by UTSA, who failed to remain undefeated last week. North Texas just took it to them. And their opponent is between Western Kentucky and Marshall, who happened to face off last week. This is just one of these teams that Western Kentucky is just a phenomenal offensive powerhouse for Conference USA. As Zap once again had over 300 yards passing, 4 TDs, with Davis getting 105 yards and 2 of those touchdowns. It's just one of these issues that the first half was pretty close. Marshall had the lead, but it's that second half that was just a turnaround in which Western Kentucky had 47 points in the second half to Marshall's 7. They came out swinging hard, knocked Marshall right on the ass, and rallied them to take the East with a 53-21 victory for a rematch with UTSA. That should be an epic showdown out there in San Antonio to see who will represent Conference USA in the bowl season. Let's go ahead and head out west to, the Mountain West. Well, there's a lot of games there that kind of had a lot of implications going in there. A couple of the side games I took into account was Air Force taking on UNLV and Utah State taking on New Mexico. Air Force and Utah State both handled their end. With Utah State's victory, that eliminates Air Force. So Utah State had to wait to see what happened in San Diego. But before we get into that one, we got to go back to Thanksgiving, where Fresno State went into San Jose to take on the Spartans. This is one of the games that Fresno State needed to win to put the pressure on San Diego State. And they took it to the Spartans. Hayner had had over 340 yards passing with 4 TDs. Running game wasn't much, but it was all aerial, all defense, as Fresno State dominated 40-9 to put the pressure on San Diego State. Now, speaking of San Diego State, they were hosting Boise State, and this one had a lot of implications. Because of Utah State winning, Boise State had to win in order to get in. San Diego State had to win because of Fresno State's victory. So a lot of things came in here. On one of these games, I thought that since San Diego State has been struggling these past few weeks, that they wouldn't really step up to the plate to do what they had to do to win the West title. And once again, I got proven wrong. Bachmeier tried his best for Boise State. Had over 200 yards passing, 2 TDs. But it was Jordan Brookshire who had to come in the game and just pretty much took the Aztecs on his shoulders and just led them to a 27-16 victory, clinching their spot in the Mountain West title game against Utah State. And we'll stay out west for this next one. We're going to Pac-12. As you already know, Utah's already sitting in Vegas waiting for the winner of the Oregon State matchup. And this wasn't even close. And not close as the score indicates, because Oregon pretty much dominated this game throughout. And just let Oregon State come back in the fourth quarter to try to make these things interesting, because Nolan had over 300 yards passing, 2 TDs, but it was just too much ducks early on. That was not enough for Oregon State to overcome, as Oregon held on to win 38-29 to set up their rematch against Utah, which would be a great matchup between those two. And then we head to the Big 12. The Big 12 had a couple of key matchups in this one. First, let's go ahead and head to Waco, where the Baylor was hosting Texas Tech in their rivalry game. And this is one of the things that Baylor had to win to put the pressure on Oklahoma. Because if Oklahoma loses, Baylor won, Baylor's in the playoff in the Big 12 championship. So Baylor did what they had to do. Nice, slow, methodical. How Baylor football has been going this pretty much past month. Defense has stepped up and made plays when they had to. Offense just done just enough to get the victories. The fourth quarter, it started getting a little dicey for Baylor Bears. Texas Tech was driving. Smith for the Red Raiders had over 260 yards passing, 2 TDs. And they tried to hit a last-second field goal to tie the game, so this game in overtime. Of course, why not? But he missed it. So unfortunate, he missed the field goal. Baylor escapes, holds on, wins 27-24. Waiting to see what happens in Bedlam. And Bedlam did not disappoint. This was an epic showdown between these two hated rivals. And it was, Caleb Williams tried his best. He had 250 yards passing, 3 TDs. Even Brooks had 139 yards on the ground. It was just one of these gutty performances, and Oklahoma State defense stepped up in that second half and just shut them down. Because Oklahoma was dominating that first half, and it was pretty much a tale of two halves. Oklahoma was up. Actually, it was tied at 24 at half, but Oklahoma was pretty much the one that's doing everything they wanted to do. Just a few mistakes here and there, which allowed Oklahoma State to kind of tie it up. And that third quarter was the second half. Oklahoma did not score offensively. They had safety and then another special teams play that ended up putting them up, giving them 9 points, giving them that 33-point threshold. But the Oklahoma State just battled back. The defense stepped up. They rattled Caleb Williams. They picked him off. And Oklahoma State ended up beating their hated in-state rival 37-33. Set up a showdown with Baylor and Arlington for the Big 12 title. Oh, but wait, there's more. Oklahoma's woes continue as their head coach Lincoln Riley has now taken the position at USC. So, with their few more years still left in the Big 12, with their impending transfer to SEC, they got to find a new head coach to install their program, because they're already starting to lose recruits because of Lincoln Riley's switch. And if he could turn around this Oklahoma program into the way it was, expect what he could do with USC and what they want there, and that's what the Pac-12 really needs, is the USC to be in the national spotlight. That's when everyone pays attention to the Pac-12. So Oklahoma's got a lot of things to work out here this offseason. They still got this bowl game coming up, so they should get good bowl game out of this one. So let's go ahead and go to the ACC, where you had Pitt already waiting for their opponent in Charlotte, and all eyes looked at Wake Forest as they went up to Boston to take on BC. And Wake did not disappoint. They came out firing on all cylinders. Hartman did just what he had to do, 236 passing, 3 TDs. A.T. Perry had 81 yards for 2 TDs, as Wake dominated BC 41-10 to clinch the Atlantic in a matchup against Pitt in the ACC championship game. Now off to the Big Ten, where you had some epic games going on. Let's go ahead and deal with the two games I kind of mentioned that should have impacts. Purdue versus Indiana. I said Purdue's going to win. They knocked off Indiana quite easily, 44-7. And then Iowa and Nebraska. Nebraska was trying to pull off the upset. Iowa had to score 22 unanswered points to escape with a 28-21 victory. So that just left a couple other key matchups. And let's go ahead and go with the one out west, with Wisconsin going to Minnesota. I figured this one's going to be Wisconsin. Minnesota had other ideas. They really took it to Wisconsin. They stifled them with the defense. They did outstanding plays when they had to. And this was all for the Paul Bunyan axe. Huge axe that they exchanged between these two universities. And Iowa became big Golden Gopher fans, and it paid off as Minnesota upset Wisconsin 23-13 to send Iowa as the West Division champion to Indianapolis to face off against either Ohio State and Michigan, and they faced off, of course, in the game. This was a historic matchup in the snow. Yes, it was snowing in there. Because C.J. Stroud pick apart the Michigan defense. Could the Michigan defense disrupt C.J. Stroud? And this was all about the Michigan defense. They were in that backfield a lot. It's also about the rushing attack by Hassan Haskins, who had a epic day of 169 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's right, 5 touchdowns. Ties a school record for most touchdowns. Speaking of records, even Trevion Henderson, who had a rushing touchdown, has the most touchdowns in the season by a freshman, by Buckeye ever, being Maurice Clarett. Another record set by Michigan was Aiden Hutchinson with his 3 sacks. Gave him the most sacks ever by a Michigan player. And, I mean, those 4 total sacks by Michigan, that just really disrupted them. They were just always in the backfield, always disrupting C.J. Stroud. He couldn't do anything. The rushing attack was almost nil. Trevion Henderson only had 74 yards. C.J. Stroud tried to do his best that he could. He almost had 400 yards passing. But it was key passing by McNamara, and the rushing attack by Hoskins and Karam that really sealed the deal for Michigan as their defense stifled Ohio State throughout the game. Jim Harbaugh shed the monkey off his back. You never beat Ohio State. He did it today. He beat, it wasn't even close. It was 42-27. Michigan clinches the East, heads into Indianapolis, take on Iowa, pretty much eliminating Ohio State from the postseason, and have a epic showdown between Michigan, Iowa, and Indianapolis. Well, those are the recaps. As I said, if you count all the games I kind of mentioned, I went 11-3. Championship weekend is going to have a lot of playoff implications, and I look forward to getting that video out to you guys very, very shortly. But let's just go ahead and look at the updated top 25. Just look at the bottom of the description, tell you how the point system for this really plays out. This does kind of hamper the group of 5 schools. So you see there will be ranked a lot lower than they possibly are nationally. Just because a lot of times it's just who they play. So I'll go ahead and give the honorable mention once again to Houston. They maintain that in that 26th position once again. Just can't seem. I mean, they just walloped UConn, so why really give them up there any further than what they were? And let's go ahead with number 25, Louisiana. After their win against their in-state rival, Louisiana Monroe, they're still 11-1. They get a 10-2 App State next week for an epic showdown for the Sun Belt title. So really, really fun game there. Next is number 24, Kentucky, making their return to the top 25. UTSA, as I briefly mentioned, got routed by North Texas and in their perfect season, drops to 23. Purdue, after getting beaten Indiana, trying to get their West Division titles hopes alive in the Big Ten, now it's up to 22. NC State's up 3 to 21. Wisconsin, after a disappointing loss, drops to 20. San Diego State cracks the top 20 at number 19 after their win against Boise State. Utah keeps climbing after winning their Rocky Mountain Showdown with Colorado. Clemson's up 1. The BYU had that win against USC, get their 10-win season, now at 16. Pitt's up 2 at 15. Oklahoma, after their disappointing loss to their in-state rival in Bedlam, drops to 14 from 7. And Cincinnati drops out of the top 12 after beating East Carolina. but they still have their showdown against that prolific Houston Cougar team for the American title. And Cincinnati really needs to win that game to pretty much guarantee their slot in the college football playoff. Well, things are really kind of determined that otherwise. But once again, like I said, my system doesn't really favor the group of five too much. And like I said, their schedule is really, really weak compared to a lot of these other programs. 12, this is going to be a lot of quality schools. A lot of these are in the conference championship games for respective conferences. And we'll go ahead and start with number 12 with Ole Miss. In a very quality season they had, unfortunately not enough. But they're up after their epic win in Egg Bowl. Sitting at number 12. Wake Forest back to 11 after their win against BC to get into the ACC championship game against number 15 Pitt. So make a good epic showdown for ACC. Unfortunately, won't be enough to have them in the playoffs. One half of the Big 12 champion, Iowa, so they're at number 10. Michigan State moves up one slot to number 9 after beating Penn State. Baylor makes a big jump to number 8, get themselves in that postseason game. Oregon's up 1 to number 7. Ohio State was by number 2, only slips 4 slots to number 6. Notre Dame actually dropped a position after beating Stanford. And once again, Notre Dame's schedule is not helping them this year. It's normally won their strongest points, but not this year. Alabama, after sneaking past Auburn, is now in the top 4. Oklahoma State, after their big win, now number 3. Michigan now moves in the 2nd, and of course Georgia number 1. And that's my top 25, my review, my recap, and hey, just let me know what you think. Which game this past weekend was the one that you like watching the most? Like I said, I enjoyed Bedlam, watching Oklahoma and Oklahoma State go at it. Watch a little bit of that Boise State San Diego State matchup, a little bit of Notre Dame Stanford, even though Notre Dame was like way ahead. Ohio State Michigan, that was another great showdown between those two. I enjoyed watching that one a lot. But hey, let me know what you think. What game you're looking forward to next week? SEC Championship game. A lot right into that one, so I'll definitely be watching that one. And while you're there, go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me. Give me a like, especially if you like this content. It really pleases the YouTube gods, helps the channel out. While you're there, you can also subscribe. Once you subscribe, you hit that bell notification, let you know next time you post a video. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.